Well, I don't mind doing it. It's just their attitude.
Cut down your trees or be fined. That from the city of Wichita to an 81-year-old woman. A letter from the city told the woman that her trees were blocking the sidewalk near her home.
The woman says she doesn't have the means to do the work, so she called Eyewitness News. See, a New Yorker spoke with her tonight in a story you'll see only on Eyewitness News.
I sat down with the 81-year-old widow who lives alone. She was emotional. She's lived and taken care of her home for the last 40 years, even mowing the lawn herself. But cutting down these tree limbs is one task she says she just doesn't have the strength to do.
See all that stuff? Their logs are piled up about that far up on there.
Jean Olson says she's done her share of yard work. The 81-year-old widow has been maintaining her home by herself for the last several years, even cutting her own grass.
I have to go up here to School Street, over to Ridge, and clear back down here. And I have to do that every time I mow the lawn.
But now she faces a new task. Right now, tree branches from her backyard dip down onto the sidewalk along Ridge Road. The city's requiring her to trim them at least 8 feet above the sidewalk. Olson says she is physically unable to cut them and doesn't have the money to pay anyone to do it.
I think it's unfair for the senior citizens. I'm probably not the only one that's done this to.
Olson is still dealing with the mess from this summer's storms. A Good Samaritan cut her fallen trees but left them in a pile. Every day she drags a few logs to the trash can. She's been working on this pile since July. No one offers to help?
Nope.
And you lift them all by yourself?
I lift them all by, I'm here by myself.
Olson called the city for help with the trees. It says it can do the work, but she will be charged later. On a fixed income, she's worried about the bill.
I don't know what I'll do. I don't want to cry. I'll probably have to pay it.
The city has given her 20 days to do the work. She knows that time is running out, and she's at a loss for what to do. Mrs. Olson reached out to the city councilman, Jeff Longwell, who says he would look into her situation. He tells Eyewitness News he is working with his Rotary Club to go out and do the work for Mrs. Olson.
Eyewitness News also spoke with the Deputy Director of Public Works. Joe Pager says the department will look into Mrs. Olson's case. She may qualify for assistance.
Doesn't show up to help an 81-year-old woman after seeing her story right here on Eyewitness News. Tonight, she says she is overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. It's a story only on Eyewitness News. As we first told you last night at 10, Jean Olson received a letter from the city of Wichita telling her to trim the trees in her backyard or else be fined. Olson is physically unable to do the work and she can't afford to pay someone to do it for her. But after our story, she didn't have to. See, a New Yorker continues our coverage with the response.
Cindy, Michael, before the sun rose this morning, a mass amount of volunteers were at Mrs. Olson's door wanting to get in her backyard. They came with tools and open hearts to do the work this elderly woman just couldn't do. Many of them told me they couldn't sleep after watching our story here on Eyewitness News, so they got up early to get the job done. This man was the first to get out in Jean Olson's yard.
I got up first thing this morning, I loaded up my chainsaw and came this way.
He said he felt bad after watching our story Wednesday night. He only wanted to help.
I couldn't help it. Yeah, who couldn't help? But I mean, look at her.
But he wasn't the only one. All Thursday morning, people streamed in carrying tree trimmers, weed whackers, and chainsaws. No one wanted to see the 81-year-old lift another finger.
I'm just so overwhelmed and happy. I hope I never have to deal with the city again.
As we first told you Wednesday, Olson received a letter from the city of Wichita telling her to trim the trees in her backyard. The branches blocked the sidewalk along Ridge Road. The widow says she can't do the work herself, and she doesn't have the money to pay someone. She was concerned about the city charging her. But now she doesn't have to worry. The work is all done thanks to many Good Samaritans.
It seemed like the right thing to do. I've got the equipment and the manpower and a little bit of time, and so we figured we'd come over and take care of this lady.
Oh, Mrs. Olson, don't cry. The work is done.
I know, but I mean, it's just so overwhelming. I mean, it's hard to believe.
We received hundreds of calls, emails, and Facebook messages from viewers wanting to help Mrs. Olson. Our original Facebook post garnered more than 600 comments and multiple shares. Mrs. Olson credits KWCH for getting the job done. I overheard one volunteer telling Mrs. Olson, "You've got a city full of adopted grandkids now who will look after you."
An 81-year-old widow facing fines for overgrown trees called us for help.
Hours after we told her story, dozens of volunteers show up to help solve the problem.
I just told God, I said, I'm just putting everything in your hands, God, because I don't know what to do.
We first told you about Jean Olson last night at 10. She received a letter from the city of Wichita telling her to trim the trees in her backyard, which blocked a sidewalk along Ridge Road. But she's physically unable and says she can't afford to pay someone to do it. But she didn't have to worry. See a New Yorker continues our coverage with your response.
Cindy, Roger, take a look here at these pictures. A drastic difference from what we showed you last night. Now those trees are cleared, and it's all because of a few good Samaritans. The sun wasn't even up, and Jean Olson had a yard full of visitors.
She's the same age as my mom, and I would want somebody to take care of my mom if she was in need, and it just seemed like the right thing to do.
Dozens showed up on her doorstep Thursday morning after watching Eyewitness News the night before. Last week, Olson received a letter from the city of Wichita telling her to trim the trees in her backyard. The branches blocked the sidewalk along Ridge Road. The widow says she can't do the work and she doesn't have the money to pay someone. She was concerned about the city charging her.
I don't know what I'll do. I'll probably have to, I don't want to cry. I'll probably have to pay it.
But Olson doesn't have to pay. People came from as far as Kingman with tools to trim her trees.
Why did I have to get some committee out here to do it? It'd take less than an evening, less than 2 hours to come out here and do this for a lady that really deserves it. Okay.
After our story, hundreds sent messages wanting to help the widow. Olson says she can't believe how generous people are.
But I just left everything in God's hands. I just prayed.
One volunteer told her she'll never have to worry about getting help again because now she has a whole city of adopted grandkids.
Glad we got this done for you today.
Oh, I am too. I'm so happy.
Great.
Thank you, all of you. I really
Have a great
appreciate it. God bless you.
You too.
Mrs. Olson credits KWCH for getting this job done. She is overwhelmed and overjoyed at the support that she's received.